Another happy Monday, everybody. Another start of the week, which means another episode of Full Out Chats. I am your host, Steve Solberg, and we are excited to go into the world of dance for the first time. We are beyond excited. Last Thursday, we talked to Ray Sharp, mascot coach at Ohio State, and today we have Amanda Gaines, dance coach at the University of Minnesota. Again, there's so much more to the spirit world than just cheerleading. It is really a huge combination of a lot of parts, and super excited to talk to Amanda about her experience at the University of Minnesota. And so before we do that, as every coach says, let's do it one more time, and let's go full out.
Are you ready? Full Out Chats. Do you know what time it is? U-L-O-O-U-P. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop. What? We got the drop, yeah. What time is it? Full Out. We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8.
Music means we are full out. We are excited to talk to Amanda Gaines, coach at the University of Minnesota Dance. Let's get Amanda.
Hey there.
Amanda, how are you?
I am good. Those were some pretty killer moves you had there. I need to recruit you for them over here.
Maybe about 10 years ago I could have had it in me, but definitely not now. But I appreciate that. I just want to first thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk with me and tell your story about how you got into the world of dance and everything. And
thanks so much for having me.
No, absolutely. And so, what I tell every guest is, I want to give a platform for people to tell their story. I think that a lot of people, especially in the dance world, they know who you are, but really they know you as coach of Minnesota Dance. And that's what you do. And I think I would love to hear your story. So like I ask everybody, kind of start from the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? Family life. And then how did you get into the world of dance?
For sure. Yeah. So I'm one of those kids that only ever did dance. I never tried t-ball. I never played soccer. Like, it was dance for me from the beginning. So my parents put me in a local studio. I grew up in Southern Illinois for the first few years of my life. So started at a local studio that was just kind of down the street from my grandma's house, actually. We like to joke, we don't know where my dance ability came from because neither of my parents are talented in that way at all. I think that might have been my very first year ever. But my great grandma, actually, she loved to go polka dancing. Even well into her 90s, she was like going out every week to go polka dancing. So we say that's maybe where I got my talent from. But yeah, started at a pretty small studio in Southern Illinois. As you can see from that beautiful little picture, those bangs, it really ages me. But I actually started competing then the next year. So I started doing solos when I was 4. And I don't know who thought that was a good idea to put a little 4-year-old on stage by yourself, but I did it. And my family ended up moving. So I went to a few different studios growing up, mostly just because my family was moving based on my stepdad's job. So started in Southern Illinois, went to a studio in St. Louis, Missouri. Lived out in Boston for a little while and was out there.
Okay.
And then moved to Minnesota when I was in 4th grade. And so that's where things really started to take off. So grew up dancing at a studio called The Dance Shop, which has now joined forces with another local studio from when I was growing up. So it's this mega studio called Summit Dance Shop, which is amazing and owned by a guy who I grew up dancing with and his wife, which is super exciting. So did studio all through, growing up. It's funny because I was not somebody who ever thought I was going to go to the University of Minnesota. I was like, I'm not staying local. I'm going to move to New York. I'm going to go to LA. Like, I was going to do all these things. Because honestly, just awareness around like what college dance team was. And obviously it's evolved a ton over the years, but there just wasn't really that awareness for studio kids back then. I think social media has been an amazing platform to kind of get the word out that college dance team is like a legitimate option for these kids that maybe don't want to do a dance program or don't want to move to LA or New York and try to do commercial dance. So as I got older in studio and started doing my high school dance team as well, so, you know, I was dancing from basically 5 to 10 every day. That's when the U of M really started to become like a goal of mine. There were a lot of older girls from my studio that had gone on to pursue dance at the U of M. The U won their first national championship when I was a sophomore in high school. And so that's when I was like, wait a second, this is legit. This is something I want to do. So honestly, when the time came for me to choose where to go to school, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. It's the only school I even did a tour of. So I was like, I was kind of Minnesota or bust at that point. So loved that I got that opportunity then to pursue and continue dancing in college. And then actually my senior year on the team, I tore my hamstring, which was pretty devastating as a senior. Obviously, like you feel like your season kind of goes down the drain. But it opened up a really unique opportunity for me because the voice and the role I had to play at practice totally changed because obviously I wasn't dancing, but I was still there. And I think it opened up Amber Jackson, who was the coach at the time, kind of opened up her eyes that maybe this is something that I could be good at. And so I was so fortunate that they asked me to be an assistant coach the year after I graduated. So I basically went from being on the team straight to being an assistant coach for 4 years. Then took over as team coach for another 4 years. I took, at the time I called it a retirement. I said I was retiring. So I was gone for 3 years, but now I am back this season and super excited to kind of be back leading the charge with the team. So yeah, it's kind of been, Gophers has kind of been the only option for me since I was old enough to really know what college dance team was. And you know, Amber and then Sam Owens, who, you know, runs the total program, they built a really amazing legacy that I was able to be a part of and then help continue from the coaching staff. So it's an exciting place to be in the world of dance.
Again, we are here with Amanda Gaines, dance coach at the University of Minnesota. We will be doing a Q&A with Amanda here a little later. So if you have any questions for Amanda about her, about the program, about anything, just tap on the bottom of the screen. You're going to see a question mark. And just tap on that question mark, send me some questions, and Amanda will be happy to answer them later. So great overview in terms of basically your dance career in a nutshell. But as you said, you kind of got into dance real early, never really did anything else but dance. I mean, kind of talk about, you know, that sacrifice from a young age in terms, I'm sure you had to make some sacrifices. I'm sure that, you know, friendships were affected, you know, growing up. And obviously a lot of kids, once they get to junior high or high school, aren't making that decision. You know, they're going to try to join, you know, volleyball or something to fit in. Yeah. You didn't make that decision. You stuck with dance. What was it about dance that really just got it claws into you and just you stuck with it?
I loved performing. Like the opportunity to get on stage. It wasn't even so much about competing, but just the opportunity to like get on stage and perform for a crowd and, oh yeah, look at that. You can just tell I had it from an early age, right? Like that's just it. Yeah, it was just something about that chance to perform. You know, like I said, for a while I was maybe toying with the idea of going out to New York and maybe trying to do Broadway. You know, I dabbled in singing a little bit, but you know, when you look at those people that are on Broadway, my voice isn't anything like that. So was not really something I was going to pursue. But yeah, you know, you talk about sacrifice. It's interesting, actually. So I mentioned my family moved around a lot. So actually heading into my junior year of high school, my family moved out to Connecticut. And so that was really tough for me. Like, you know, like I only had 2 years left of high school. I had an amazing studio that I was at. I was on my high school dance team. All of my friends who were also dancers were there. Like all my friends are dancers. If you don't dance, sorry, like we just can't, it's not going to be a thing. But so it was really tough to move my junior year. So I was actually out in Connecticut for about a month before I realized like, I'm not happy out here. And I was so fortunate that the owners of my dance studio actually offered to have me come and live with them. So I
Oh,
moved
wow.
out of the house when I was 16 to move back to Minnesota so I could finish my dance training at the studio and with my high school team, and then end up going, being local then for University of Minnesota. So
oh my goodness, I didn't know you made that sacrifice. Holy cow.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's funny. Like, I kind of forget that I did that. Like, it seems like it was so long ago. And at the time, it was just so, like, it just felt like it was the right thing to do. Like I said, I was dancing, 5 to 6 hours a day after school. So it's like, I went to school, went to dance, came home, did my homework, went to bed. Like, I didn't get into trouble. I didn't go out. Like, it was dance for me. And that was so important for me to pursue. And so that just felt like the right thing. Like, I wasn't necessarily getting the training or having like the camaraderie and the community that I wanted when we moved. So, I thank my parents every day that they were able to also make that sacrifice and trusted me enough to come back to Minnesota, and that I had, so many amazing friends and families at the studio who were willing to kind of take me in and help me out. And, I don't regret that decision ever, but it's crazy to think like that's what I did to, continue my training. So
I mean, clearly your parents obviously made a huge sacrifice for you also then. And I mean, talk about that. Talk about, how did that discussion go? How did it even come up? I mean, was there any types of like, no, you're coming with us to Connecticut, or was it, yeah, they truly, they thought this was the best thing for you?
Yeah. So I think there was a little bit of that discussion before we moved, but a part of me was also, like kind of excited, like I'm going to start fresh and this is going to be, like I'm going to make a big splash at my new high school. And that didn't happen. So I think, honestly, I think they could just see how genuinely unhappy I was, and how tough it was for me not, having that outlet and that resource in the same way. And, I think they also realized how much they had invested into it up to that point, and how much I loved it, and how much they loved getting to watch me do that too. Like I think, I'm not a parent, but even I think as a coach, when I like just see my team like doing what they love, like that just, like nothing makes you feel better. And so I think for my parents too, it was really tough for them to not get to watch me do that. And so for them, it just felt like the right thing. And they were also very close with the families that were kind of taking me in and helping me out. So they knew I would be in good hands. And like I said, I was a pretty good kid. I wasn't really getting into trouble. So I got good grades. I was on top of my stuff. So I don't think they were too concerned about me being on my own. So
Again, we're here with Amanda Gaines, the dance coach at the University of Minnesota. You alluded to it earlier already. Talk about the studio culture. There's obviously just as people. I obviously was not a dancer. I was a cheerleader, but
it fooled us with that.
I know. But I grew to really appreciate dance because I cheered at the University of Wisconsin.
Yes.
And when I was there, which I'm going to date myself here, I know I'm older than you. I was at Wisconsin cheering from 01 to 05, and we went to nationals 2 years, and Wisconsin dance took second. I know one year, I think it was 03 or 04 to Minnesota. So I just remember, it was a heated rivalry, but I grew to really appreciate dancers. I remember coming in, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like a dance, like, but then,
that's how I felt about cheer coming into college. I was like, okay, and then you really start to see the athleticism.
Exactly. The injuries and especially the beat up feet and ankles and shin splints and just, these ladies and gentlemen are just putting their bodies through literally hell.
It's crazy,
to do something they love so much. But I was talking about the studio culture. Kind of talk about, how has the studios really evolved over the years, and how that, as you already mentioned and alluded to, like, I really feel in the last, like, 5, definitely 10, but definitely 5, I think the respect and kind of the, what people are seeing from collegiate dance has really blown up. Talk about that.
Totally has. And I do think a lot of that, we have social media to thank for that. I think it just allows us to kind of share what we're doing with a whole new audience. I also think too, I think studio dance can be misconstrued as well. I think people look at shows like Dance Moms, and that's not a realistic experience for most people in the studio world. Like, these kids are training in a ton of different styles, but it's not that kind of drama filled environment. Like you actually do have some really amazing like team atmosphere, and it feels like a family. And I think more and more kids are craving the ability to continue that feeling as they get into college. And the reality is, like, you don't necessarily get that if you're going to pursue a commercial dance career and, you know, try to be in music videos or go on tour, or, you know, there are so many amazing dance programs in college, but a lot of those programs focus on things that are very different than studio. You know, you're not competing, you're not, you're maybe not doing as many styles, and definitely in college, you know, you're definitely limited to the styles that you're doing, but I think it still allows dancers to really grow and work with amazing choreographers, and they get that competitive portion at a lot of teams that I think you wouldn't necessarily get like from a dance program. So it's been really cool to see how a lot of teachers and choreographers that work mainly in the studio world are starting to get involved in college dance team. And I think that's what has really evolved the style and just allowed college dance to really push forward in terms of like innovation and technique and performance, because we're really starting to bring in choreographers who are working in all aspects of dance. And so it allows us to kind of bring in the best of all of these worlds to showcase on these really like top tier athletes.
I agree with the whole social media thing, and for really the spirit world. I mean, just
totally,
the exposure now that dance teams, cheerleading teams, and mascots are getting. And, you know, I just, you know, as I said, I interviewed Ray Sharp from Ohio State last Thursday, and just, you know, the exposure Brutus gets now, especially through social media and, you know, Minnesota dance. And, you know, for me, I you know, like teams, I mean, through social media, I mean, for me, I've seen, like, obviously I've seen so many videos in Minnesota and all the routines there, Ohio State, and some of their amazing routines, and then BYU. I've seen some, I mean, BYU, I was like, gosh, I really would love BYU, Ohio State, Minnesota to go at it, because I think that would be amazing.
I don't know if my nerves can handle that. Stuff, but it's already competitive enough with all the teams at UDA.
I know, and I was just like, but you're right. So you transition into college, obviously, at the University of Minnesota. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize about collegiate dance is game day. It's a huge part, you know. So talk about, I mean, did you dance through your high school? I think you said you did. But did you have to do, like, especially at the University of Minnesota, I will say this to the day I die. The University of Minnesota is without a doubt one of the best, or in my opinion, the best game day program in the country. It is unbelievable. Y'all are so sharp. Everything is so coordinated very well. I mean, kind of talk about the eye-opening experience of Minnesota game day as a dancer.
Totally. And so much of that is attributed to Coach Sam Owens, like the expectations and what you really dug in the archives for.
I got you.
Man, wow, you're killing it. But yeah, that game day experience, that is all because of Sam Owens. And then you look at just the amazing staff that he brings in, and he makes sure that people are really bought into that same game day experience. What's really interesting for dance in Minnesota is POM is not something that these kids are doing at studio or at the high school level, like in high school dance teams. So Minnesota's unique in that, you know, UDA obviously and NDA, they both have high school competitions. Minnesota's State High School League actually does not allow teams to compete on the national level. They can only compete within the state league. So we do have some schools. So I think Eden Prairie High School is large enough that they can actually have 2 teams at their school. So one dance team does the state league and one dance team competes at UDA Nationals. But that means that most of these kids growing up in Minnesota have never done POM. So I danced, you know, on my dance team in high school, and we did game day in the fact that, like, we held POMs in our hands, but we were not doing like anything remotely like what competitive POM or even what collegiate game day looks like. So it's interesting, like, kind of, it's almost easier teaching it from scratch to these dancers, because we're not necessarily breaking bad habits or changing habits that they've got from other programs. We're truly just starting from scratch. And so, you know, if you've got, we like to say, like, if you've got general technique, like, I can teach you how to be sharp. I can teach you how to get your motions. Like, that's just body awareness. And, you know, so we focus a lot on, like, what does that total game day experience look like. And the reality is you don't have to have previous experience for us to get you to that level. And that's what's really amazing about the program as a whole, is that we're able to kind of take these kids who are really fresh with fight songs and sidelines and get them to feel comfortable on the sideline of a stadium and, you know, get the crowd going. And it's really, nothing beats game day. Like, as much as, you know, winning national championships is amazing, like, and working for, like, you know, working towards those goals for competition, it's amazing how many alumni come out of the program and they're like, God, but I loved game day. And I think, again, that's just really attributed to just the culture of the Spirit Squad program as a whole at the U, and that, like, game day has just as much focus as the competitive side of things. And so we put equal focus on both to make sure that the experience for both and the journey to get to that end result is fun both ways.
Again, we're here with Amanda Gaines, dance coach at the University of Minnesota. We'll be doing a Q&A in about 15 to 20 minutes here with Amanda. So if you have any questions for her, just tap on the question mark at the bottom. Send me some questions, and I'd be happy to make sure Amanda answers any question about herself or the Minnesota program. And so talk about now, you're coming in and as a freshman and you're just getting bombarded with traditions and game day stuff. Totally. But let's be honest here. The reason you got into dance is because you already talked about it. You love to compete.
Totally. Yeah.
And you're walking into a program where the expectation is you're going to win national championships. I mean, that is the expectation. Talk about your first nationals experience and going through that grind and having that M on your chest that carries a lot of weight and a lot of burden.
Oh, I get chills kind of thinking back to it. There's something so great about being so naive as a freshman and just not really you know, like, you come in and you're like, I'm competitive. I know I'm going to hit my stuff. Like, I feel confident. I trust my teammates. I trust my coaches. I trust, like, the routines we're putting on the floor. And so, like, you almost don't understand the pressure yet because to you, like, it's just, you're just so naive to what that experience is. And then you walk into Wide World of Sports and you see all of these teams. You've got your cheerleader, you know, it was like, people always joke, like, is it like Bring It On? And you're like, it kind of was a little bit. Like, that first year, you're like, a little bit, it did feel like Bring It On. But it was so amazing to just be surrounded by teams from all over and just see, like, the intensity and the passion from everyone. And so it wasn't truly until I got down to Florida that first year that I think I felt that, like, pressure and, like, the nerves hit me, because I think the journey getting there, like, I was just so confident. I remember, like, this just shows, you know, God, again, to just be a naive little freshman. But I remember, you know, before we went on Christmas break, telling all my friends in the dorms, like, I'm going to come back a national champion, just so you know. Like, just having that kind of confidence. I'm like, who was I as a little 18-year-old, like, who didn't know any better? So luckily we did win, so I didn't come back and have to put my foot in my mouth. But yeah, like, getting down there, and then, you know, there's that element of you're walking around with Minnesota, and, like, you know, when you're performing, like, people are going to come watch you. And, like, there's just something, like, there's so much pride around that, and getting to do it with your teammates, like, that, the best feeling is walking off the floor and just kind of, like, having those chills and that feeling and knowing that you guys did it together. That was like the biggest aha moment for me with college versus studio, is, like, it was truly about the team as a whole and not about any individual successes. Like, we, you know, even in studio growing up, as much as there's that team atmosphere, like, everybody knows, like, the names of those people that are in the front row of a dance. In college, like, it's not necessarily about that. It's probably a little different now with social media, but back then, it's like, you're part of Minnesota. Like, nobody knows your name, but they know you are Minnesota. And that was just such an amazing sense of pride, like, representing a team more so than yourself. So.
Again, we're here with Coach Amanda Gaines, University of Minnesota Dance. For those that are watching that maybe aren't in a dance or they don't know much about dance, just quickly talk about, and again, you guys compete at UDA Nationals, which is in Orlando in January. Kind of talk about the structure, kind of real quick, just kind of the breakdown of the divisions and how it's scored, and kind of, you know, choreo, like, kind of what goes into preparing and what is dance college nationals?
Absolutely. So at UDA, there are 3 different categories. So there's jazz, pom, and hip hop. Teams are allowed to compete. Actually, there's also game day now too, which is new. Teams are allowed to compete in 2 of those 3 plus game day. So obviously when you look at a jazz category, that's like your more traditional, maybe what you would see from studio, like your jazz or lyrical type dances, very focused on like turns and leaps and emotion and precision. When you get into pom, that's obviously those technical elements are still there, but you're thinking a lot about pictures and strength and sync and uniformity. And then hip hop, I can't even describe the hip hop category at UVA.
Yeah.
It is my favorite, maybe because there's no pressure because we don't compete in hip hop at the U of M. Watching hip hop finals at nationals is one of my favorite things to do because those teams bring it. It is insane. It's so fun. So there are 3 different divisions. So there's Division 1A, Division 1, and then Open across dance. And so they'll announce winners across all divisions, across all different categories. Judging, like I said, you're judged across all the score sheets. There's elements of your technical ability, your sync and uniformity, spacing. So obviously, you know, as you're doing all your staging and group work and everything, is your spacing correct? Choreography is a huge portion of it. So a lot of teams, similar to cheer, will bring in choreographers for each different routine that will set that routine for the team. So they're looking at things like creativity, musicality, staging, uniqueness of movement, those types of things. And then performance is a huge piece of it. So like, what is your emotion? What's your projection and communication to the judges? And then just the overall appeal, like how did all of those things kind of come together to create a total experience for the audience. So that's one thing we like to talk about. It's a really, college is so unique because, you know, they're so athletic, but we try to blend in that artistry, especially in the jazz category. So how are you blending that athleticism and artistry? And I think that's something that so many teams have gotten so good at, like, and it's so fun to see. There's so many different directions you can take that jazz category. So it's so fun to see, you know, each team's kind of style come through when they do their jazz routines, because there's so much innovation, so much technical skill, like so many wow moments and so many performances that just make you really like feel something. And so that's it's crazy to think how competitive these categories have gotten as the years have progressed. But so much of that is just attributed to the dancers that are coming through these college programs now. There's so much for choreographers and coaches to work with that make it like you can put some truly iconic routines on the floor down at National.
Again, here with Amanda Gaines, dance coach, University of Minnesota. Something that I have noticed, especially in the last few years, and first, and definitely in the hip hop category, but also really all categories, is you're seeing more males on college dance teams. Kind of talk about that evolution and seeing more males becoming a part of collegiate dance.
Again, I think a lot of that is attributed to just the exposure that we're getting through social media. It's fun to see. Obviously, there have always been boys that are dancing, but I think as a lot of schools and states have allowed boys to join their high school dance teams, that has opened up an opportunity for boys to then think of college dance as an option for them as well. So, I mean, such amazing athleticism from some of these boys on these teams. And it's amazing to see too, just how they kind of blend into the routines. It's not so much about like, you've got a boy and he is the center of the entire piece anymore. They are truly like just a member of the team doing all the same choreography. They'll maybe have a feature here or there the same way a girl would, but it's so cool to see how they really integrate into the team as a whole, and just kind of up the level of athleticism that you're seeing on the floor.
So obviously you danced for 4 years at University of Minnesota, won some national championships as an athlete. And as you said, transition, it kind of just an opportunity arose where kind of you transitioned pretty smoothly into an assistant role. First, talk about that transition of, I mean, you're coaching some former teammates, you're coaching friends, but then And what year did you transition into an assistant role?
So I graduated college. I was on the team from 05 to 09 and then started coaching immediately after. So 09 to 010 was my first season as a coach.
Okay. So talk about that transition of you're now coaching friends or coaching people you were out there with, and then the transition to becoming, the head coach.
Yeah. So I joke with my friends. So I was actually the only senior on the team my senior year. And so all of my friends were younger than me. And so then it was a really tough transition. And, that first year out of college can be so hard anyway. We had a recession that year. All of my college friends, we all lost our job offers when we graduated. So I wasn't even sure like what I was going to do. So the job offer to coach was what really kept me in Minnesota. But it's
real quick, what was your major at Minnesota? What did you study at University of Minnesota?
So I was a marketing major. So I went to business school. So I actually work full-time. I have a corporate job outside of coaching. So coaching is my other full-time job, I like to say. But yeah, so at that time, that first year out, like it's just tough, it's such a tough transition anyway. And so it would have been hard regardless because my friends were all still in school. And then I went to coaching and I joke with them because they'll always talk about, oh, do you remember when we went to this party and this happened? And I'm like, no, I don't, because I wasn't allowed to hang out with you that year.
Yeah.
But it actually made our relationship so much stronger. It allowed me to I was privy to so much information, like inside information on the team as an assistant coach. So it really allowed the way I helped Amber, who was, running the team at the time. It really allowed me to kind of share a different perspective because the team felt comfortable coming to me with things that maybe they wouldn't have felt comfortable going to a coach about previously. So it opened up our eyes to like just nuances of things that maybe they were feeling or frustrated about that the coaching.
Oh, there you go.
So my phone is on airplane, so I'm not sure how that.
Oh, no, right.
But yeah, so it was a tough transition. Absolutely. Like I said, watching your friends go through these experiences and feeling like you're kind of on the other side of things or having to be a tough disciplinarian or, give corrections. Like it's that's a tough transition, but I think it actually made our friendship stronger. And it's amazing because, like I said, I'm still friends with all of these people that I danced with. And, we joke none of us can close the yearbook, and they're all still amazing supporters of the program. And the U just has an amazing alumni network anyway. And
Oh, absolutely.
I'm so fortunate how the Spirit Squad alumni support us through all aspects of the season. So, yeah, it was tough. I will be honest. It was really tough. And looking back, I think I was pretty lonely that first year, to be honest. But, coaching the team just gave me like a sense of self and a sense of pride, and it really kept me focused. And then being able to assist for 4 years was like the best thing that ever happened. I learned so much. And so Amber, I owe so much to Amber. I owe so much to my high school coach, Leslie Swigum, who is like a hero in the Minnesota high school dance team world. So there's just, I've been so fortunate, even my studio teachers, I've been so fortunate to have so many models of excellence for when I then took over the team. So it felt like a really easy transition because I knew exactly kind of what I did and didn't want to do, how I did and didn't want to be perceived by the team, by alumni, by parents, by administration, by my fellow Spirit Squad coaches. It really helped frame up kind of what I wanted my coaching philosophy to be. And that's obviously evolved, over the years with experience, but I was so set up for success because of the role models and the journey that I had taken up to that point, that it made that first transition into that first year taking over the team feel pretty seamless. And I always knew that I had people like Amber or Stacey Marquardt, who had also been one of my assistants when I was on the team. She was an assistant coach while I was on the team. I just knew I had these resources of people that were totally in my corner. And that's what's been really amazing.
Every time I ask this question, in fact, no coach has never said no. Do you agree that it's more stressful being a coach than an athlete?
Yes.
Okay.
You have zero control.
Yes.
You have zero control over anything. I'm like, I know I would hit that turn if I was on the floor, so I don't know what your problem is.
And you, like you said,
for the record, I cannot do anything my team does anymore.
Oh, I mean, not even close. Me either. I mean, like the stunts being thrown out. I'm like, no, there's just no way. But yeah, you're right. You know, as a coach, you're just so much. I mean, there's beauty, like you said, there's beauty to being naive.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
So, and I remember when I got my first assistant coaching position, it was with Sun Prairie High School out of Wisconsin. And I just remember, like, it was stressful, but then I remember when I took over as head coach, that first nationals for me, I remember, because it's your name,
right?
You know, like it pops up on that screen and it's your name, and you know, and you just feel, holy cow, okay, here we go. Talk about your first nationals as the dance coach. It's your name on that product. Kind of talk about that, you know, how was that for you, and what was the difference between being an assistant to being, you know, the coach?
It's crazy. I think back to my first 2 years as being the team coach. I didn't have an assistant those first 2 years. I just did it by myself, and I'm like, how?
Yeah,
how did I
right.
do that? And
so,
I kind of had to have moments. I was really fortunate. My parents actually came down to nationals that first year to kind of be my support system, like, because you know there's an element of coaching, like we tell our kids all the time, like you have to turn it on and off, like depending on where you're at. There's an element of coaching too, like you've got to turn it on and fake it for your team. So even though I maybe like was wanting to cry and you know, like shake, you have to be strong for your team. And so it's almost like performing, right? Like I said so much, like I loved performing growing up. Like nationals as a coach was just like one big performance for me. Like, we've got this. And then I would go in my hotel room and like maybe have a little breakdown. But, you know, people always say this after nationals, it takes a village, and it's so true. So again, like I look at Sam Owens was like so crucial to me at that nationals. Carl Munch, who was our jazz choreographer that year, Dan Sapp, who did our palm routine, like having the choreographers like in the music box with me, holding my hand, watching the team, having them in the marking room. Like it truly does take a village. It's all of those voices combined that create that really strong, powerful presence for the team. And like at the end of the day, the goal is that the team feels ready. So if I can fake it and make the team feel ready, then great. We also had some amazing alumni down at nationals that year too. And it's so cool. My mom happened to film awards that year, and it's just so cool to see like this circle of like trust and the circle of like supporters around us as awards are happening. So it's like you've got the team on stage having this amazing moment, but then you have like there's video footage of me and Sam and Carl and Dan and these alumni like celebrating and having this amazing moment after winning a double national championship. Like that is such a cool memory and like memento for me to have, because like you can almost just see the release in my body like when awards are done. But it, you know, it, as cliche as it is, it truly does take a village. And so I don't think I could have survived nationals that first year without that village of people. Like they were crucial to me being able to like fake it for the team, because mentally the pressure, the stress, like it's a lot. It's a lot, especially because like you said, we have no control over anything. You just kind of have to hope you did your job and got them ready. So
again, we're here with Amanda Gaines, dance coach, University of Minnesota. In a couple of minutes, we're going to start up our Q&A session here with Amanda. So kind of talk about, as you said, you were the dance coach in regards to in charge of the dance program and things like that. And how many years was your first stint?
So I did 8 years. So 4 as an assistant, 4 as a team coach, and then 3 years retired.
And I remember Purdue and Minnesota, we have a great relationship, and you guys had won. And I remember we were, you know, hanging out and just congratulating each other.
Yes,
we had a good year too. And I remember you saying, hey, I'm done. I'm going to be retiring.
Yeah.
And I've actually talked to a couple of cheer coaches already about how sometimes we try to leave, but yet it sucks you back in somehow. So kind of talk about first those years not coaching. And, I mean, I'm sure there were some pros to it. I'm sure there were some great things about it. Kind of talk about the pros and cons. And but you know, as a lot of people know, they sucked you back in, and you're back. So kind of talk about I guess the decision to come back and give it round 2.
For sure. Yeah, that first year out, I've never been so well rested. Let me tell you, I slept so much. And honestly, that was the first time in my life that I had time. Like like I said, I grew up dancing. I went to school, then I was at high school dancing practice, then I went to the studio, and then right away in college, I did the team, and then I started coaching right after. So for the first time in my life, I was only working a corporate job, and then I would come home and be like, what do people do? Like, do I need a hobby? Like, what should I do? So there was a lot of self-discovery and just like what it meant to, like, I think, UMDT coach was so ingrained as part of my identity that it was just a journey of self-discovery to understand like what that meant when that wasn't the case. I was so fortunate that the coaches that took over after me were 3 dancers that I had the opportunity to coach when they were on the team. So I had a really great relationship with them and was able to kind of be a mentor to them through the season and still kind of be involved as an alumni, which kind of, satiated the hunger a little bit. And I was content with that. Then my second year out, I was really fortunate to be asked to assist Kenzie Simonians, who did the jazz choreography. She asked if I wanted to assist her with choreography. And so that allowed me to kind of step into even a different role than I had ever played for the team, and be a little more involved. And I actually went down to nationals that year, which was so fun and maybe kind of started the fire in me a little bit to be like, oh, maybe I missed this. And so last year, I think I maybe started to explore a little more like what could coaching look like outside of you? Would I maybe be interested in a high school team? Do I want to get back into the studio world and do more there? I was still doing choreography for the U last year. So, it just started, I think I started to have these conversations of like, I miss the relationships and I miss the competition a little bit. I didn't miss the pressure, but like, there were elements of coaching, just the connection and the sense of community and just the development of the dancers that I was starting to miss. So I started to think about like, what could different ways of doing that look like in the future? And then it just so happened that the 3 coaches were ready to take a step back and be done and kind of pursue the next phase of their life after coaching. And so when they talked to me, like, would you ever be interested? I was like, yeah, I would. Like, I really would. And I think they were shocked at how quickly I was able to say yes. But I was like, there's some, timing is everything. And I'm a big believer in like signs from the universe. And it was just something, like I said, that I'd kind of been thinking about. And so when that opportunity presented itself, it just felt like the right thing. And, like I said, I was really fortunate to have been working with the team a little bit the last 2 years. So I already had a relationship with some of the dancers and the parents. So it just made the transition back in a little bit easier. And it's been really fun so far. And I can't wait to like get back into the swing of things now, because there's an element of it feels like I never really left, but at the same time, like so many things are different now after 3 years. So it's going to be a good balance of bringing back those elements that I felt really passionately about and that were really important to me, and also adjusting to kind of like what the new world looks like. And, managing social media, like it wasn't this big 3 years ago. Like, it's a full-time job. So yeah, it's crazy, but it's fun and I'm excited. And I'm just really fortunate that timing and opportunity aligned, and I was in a good place with my corporate career that I felt like I could take this on.
Well, are you ready for the Q&A section?
I'm ready.
We have a bunch of questions, which
Love
is
it.
great. And I'm glad you kind of alluded to it. Obviously, with the whole COVID-19 situation we're all in, obviously right now it's weird for all of us. We're trying
so weird.
I know. It's unbelievably weird. I should be in the office right now and getting ready for probably, and actually we should have just had our tryouts. And that is actually
the virtual tryouts.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It was so different, but
and that's
successful, but weird. And
that is one of the first questions for Minnesota Dance. Kind of what do tryouts look like this year? What is your procedure? I don't know if you guys have already. I think you have. I think you just announced
we announced the team yesterday. Yeah.
So talk about what was your game plan going forward for picking the dance team virtually.
Yeah, so we were really fortunate in that our spring clinic, our fall prep clinic, we had actually been able to have prior to all of this happening. I know a lot of programs were not as fortunate. They had to cancel their spring clinics. So because of that, that spring prep clinic is usually a chance where we do get to see a lot of the people that are thinking about coming to tryouts. We get to talk through a lot of the skills that will be expected, some of the material. So we had a little bit of a leg up in that I was actually able to attend that prep clinic and see some of the dancers. So I already had a good feel for a lot of the incoming freshmen who was been trying out. A lot of people were already familiar with some of like the skill requirements. So we did have that advantage. We had a lot of conversations just around like, I'm always a believer in tryouts. Like there's so much value in getting to work directly with the athletes and kind of see how they take correction, how they interact with other dancers, how do they, you know, react under pressure, like in front of judges versus in front of their peers. So there's so much value in that unfortunately we just couldn't really replicate with the virtual tryout. But we came up with a pretty intense list of skills that we wanted the dancers to complete. It was amazing seeing, you know, we had a few dancers that were filming in their kitchen or they went out into their front yard and, you know, I would get emails, I hope it's okay, like we're taking it serious. I'm like, I am so impressed with what you just busted out in your dining room. Don't worry about it. Like, so it was really cool to see how resilient the dancers were through that too. But we had a pretty intense list of skills that we required them to film all in one take and submit. And then we were a lot more flexible with the jazz and pom combos. Typically, we would teach material. But again, so much of that is getting value from them getting to work with them and clean and talk through things during the tryout process. So since we weren't going to be able to have that back and forth, we actually opened it up to allow them to just submit their own jazz and pom material. So it was really cool to see some of their own styles come through and some really impressive dancers. Like I think the quality of dancers that submitted were really, really incredible. So we had a lot of tough choices, but we ended up taking our biggest team ever with 21 dancers. And so we're super excited with all of our incoming freshmen. So
I mean, a question for me. How many dancers are on the floor for nationals?
So right now it is 16.
Okay,
so,
I thought so.
Yeah,
just like college.
Yeah, Minnesota has usually had one of the smaller dance teams. A lot of programs typically do take around 20 or more, especially when you think of like the game day experience. So we're usually right around 17 or 18 dancers. So we've always been maybe a little bit smaller. So the fact that we were able to up to 21, I mean, just based on the talent level, was really exciting for me. So it would have been tough to turn away some of these dancers. It was tough to turn away some of the dancers that had submitted. So it was already a really tough decision. But
all right, we have another great question here for you. Biggest advice for incoming freshmen trying out for a college team. So as a coach, I mean, what are you looking for from an incoming freshman to make your program or just a kind of general overview of what a college program is looking for?
Totally. So I think there's obviously, a certain skill level that teams will be looking for. And I think teams are usually pretty upfront through their clinics or their tryout packets of like what that baseline skill level is. But outside of just like technical ability, I want somebody who is coachable, who is passionate about the team and the school. You are a student first. So you're a student athlete, but you're a student first. And so the school has to be a right fit. So I know, take advantage of like combines and clinics and just get an opportunity to like look and feel the vibe of as many teams and schools as you can, because at the end of the day, like it could be your dream team. Like Minnesota might be your dream dance team, but Minnesota in the dead of winter may not be your dream school. So like, you've got to make sure, it gets cold. So you've got to make sure that the school is the right fit. And so for me as a coach, it's really important that dancers have kind of done their due diligence to make sure that like the school feels right, like a right fit too. I always say it's about taking the right dancers, not the best dancers. So it's people that I feel just fit within the culture and the vibe. So like I said, are you coachable? How do you interact with the other dancers? Can I see you at appearances and on game day? Like there's so many talented dancers that I'm like, I just don't know if she could perform the way we need her to for that game day experience. So it's about being well-rounded with that performance ability as well.
Here's a great one also, man. What are some good coaches conferences or classes to guide my dance team? To guide my dance team.
This is an amazing question. I think over the last few years, the amount of resources that have been pulled together is insane. Like these types of things did not exist. So actually a good friend of mine, the former Wisconsin coach, Jenna Schneider, she started Dance Coach Academy. A lot of my Big Ten peers. So Melissa from Ohio State, Jenny from Iowa, Toya sometimes who does choreography from TRA. She's done some stuff there.
And Jenny from Iowa is a Minnesota alum, isn't she?
She is. Yeah. So Jenny was actually my assistant coach. Here on the team.
Jenny's great. She's awesome.
We go way back. We danced at the same studio growing up.
Okay.
We went to the same high school. I have actually been shadowing Jenny her entire life. She's been 4 years ahead of me on everything. But yeah, Jenny and I go way back. But the Big Ten as a whole, we just have such a great community of coaches. So it's phenomenal. But yeah, so there's Dance Coach Academy, which has some really amazing resources from fellow Big Ten coaches. National Dance Coach Association puts together a ton of amazing resources. I was actually so excited to be coaching again because then I could join NDCA. So that was super exciting. I know Varsity does a coaches conference. I've never actually been able to attend the Varsity Coaches Conference, but I know a lot of the speakers. They have a lot of college coaches and even high school coaches from really amazing programs that are speakers and share some of their learnings and just ideas. So those are kind of the three that pop to mind. I would also say I'm just a student of coaching. I love reading, I don't want to call them self-help books, but there's so many amazing books by successful coaches and just ways to motivate teams. And so, there's so many resources out there that can just help outside of dance specific resources. So,
an interesting question. This is from Lacey. I sent a direct message, but I grew up poor and didn't have a chance to get into competition dance. But I'm on my school's team, and it cuts out there. But I run into this also. I mean, to get into all-star cheerleading or to get into a competitive dance, studio dance, it's not cheap. It is not. And kind of talk about if for people that are in terms of just, economically, they're just not able to afford that type of training. But what are things that they can do to still get some sort of training or to get ready to possibly try to do this in college?
Absolutely. That's another thing where I think social media has been a game changer in this space. So especially now with quarantine, you look at so many amazing conventions and studios are offering virtual classes. I think they're definitely more prevalent now because of quarantine, but those types of resources are available all the time for a severely discounted price, which is amazing. So you can kind of train at home. It sounds silly, but find dancers that you love on social media, on YouTube, and just watch and study them. So many amazing skill sets are self-taught. So if you can get a strong technical base by taking just some basic ballet classes from virtual teachers, who's to say you can't watch and learn styles and learn skills and learn movement and choreography from a lot of different choreographers and teachers to just broaden kind of what your skill set is. So there's so many ways to leverage social media and YouTube to train yourself. I think a lot of people wonder, going into college teams, what background do we want? It doesn't matter. I've got kids that only did studio. I've got kids that did all-star. I've got kids that, only did high school dance team and quit their studio once they got to high school. Backgrounds from all over the place. And I think most programs are like that. There's not a specific background that you have to have. So if if you're somebody that just started and is only doing your high school dance team and that's the only training that you're getting, that's fine. Like just keep pushing yourself, and that's totally feasible.
We got time for one last question.
Yeah.
And kind of a good one overall. What can I do as a coach in this coronavirus break? Tips on what coaches can do with their athletes right now to keep them in shape and to keep them ready when we can finally get back to, as they say, normal.
Yeah, it's awful right now, isn't it? Like it's just it's awful. I think for me it's really important. I've been checking in with the team as much as I can. Once a week I've been doing some like one-on-one videos with them too, just to chat. I think, we take for granted, I think, how tough these kids are sometimes, and it's scary, and, they just want to dance, they just want to move. So even just checking in with them, like on their mental state, I think is super important, and still creating that sense of community and team, even if they're not all together. We will officially kind of be kicking off our summer prep next week, but we'll be focusing a lot on just team workouts. So making the program super easy. So it's all stuff they can do at home. They don't need weights or machinery for, and just kind of having, what we'll be doing is just creating little groups that they can kind of check in on each other with and use each other as resources for accountability buddies. Goal setting is super important too. So obviously, like, you can't necessarily clean a dance right now, but what are maybe some specific turn goals that each dancer could come up with individually? It doesn't necessarily have to be the same across each team or across the total team, knowing people are at different levels, but what's a turn goal they can work on in their kitchen? What's a flexibility goal? Like flexibility and strength is something that is super easy to work on at home. So great opportunity to kind of push your dancers to maybe go a little bit further with that kind of stuff right now versus maybe leaps and jumps and choreography.
Yes.
Knowing space can be really tough. So like think about those like baseline technical things that you can really focus on when they're at home by themselves, and have them set goals and just be accountable to each other through check-ins.
Well, Amanda, this has been awesome. We are almost at our 1 hour, which is great. I knew that this would be an awesome talk.
I could talk dance forever.
I know, and that's great. I don't know if people know, but I've started a new kind of spin-off called Coach's Corner, which is live on YouTube, where I bring in 4 to 5 coaches in the industry, and we talk about some current subjects. If I can get 4 to 5 dance coaches, is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I would love to have a dance version of it. That would be so much fun. Yeah. Before I let you go, one last question I like to try to ask all my guests is, what is the one piece of advice or coaching advice that you received that has stuck with you since day one?
That's tough. I think it's focus on what you can control. There are so many, even right now, coronavirus, right? Like, I have no control over when I'll actually be able to see my team again, but I can focus on, what does prep look like when we do get back? What are different scenarios based on timing? So just focus on what you can control, which is tough because as a coach, like, you don't have a lot of control over some things, but putting your effort into the things that you actually can impact, I think just helps keep your sanity level at a good place and keeps you from spiraling.
Amanda Gaines, dance coach, University of Minnesota. Welcome back. I'm excited that you're back.
Yes.
I'm hoping we get back to normalcy and we get to see each other down in Orlando again, and hopefully having a celebration as before. So Amanda, thank you so much. We will definitely be in touch in regards to that Coach's Corner. Would love to have you for that.
Would love to do that.
But other than that, stay healthy, stay safe, and thanks again.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Amanda Gaines, dance coach, University of Minnesota. Thank you again for being here. As alluded, started a new YouTube live stream called Coach's Corner. It did really well, and we got some great feedback, and people wanted to keep it going. So we are going to keep it going. This Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, myself, Tony Nash, Ben Schreiber, and Mark Coleman are going to be talking on a couple subjects in the cheer world. Again, I am going to work on some other stuff. I would love to do a mascot version. I would love to do a dance version. I think it would be a lot of fun. So again, this Wednesday night, Coach's Corner with myself, Tony Nash, Ben Schreiber, and Mark Coleman. And also just a quick reminder to please follow us on YouTube, Full Out Chats. That's where you will see the live shows in regards to any of the coaches' corners, and also reposting all of these shows that we have here. Again, a special thank you to Amanda Gaines, dance coach at the University of Minnesota. This Wednesday, live on YouTube, Coach's Corner. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be very entertaining. So once again, everybody, stay healthy, stay safe, have a great day.